everybody. Welcome to Wednesday night. We're halfway through the week, hump day. So tonight we're going to have our roundtable discussions. And this is something that's done every year at April Conference with the youth. We have 4 different topics that you will get to choose from tonight. And you will be able to go into a breakout room to talk more in depth about these topics. So the way we're going to kick it off is I'm going to announce the moderators for each breakout room. I will let you all introduce yourselves very briefly. And then after that, we will break you all into a room for probably about an hour, maybe a little less. And then we're going to come back together as a large group. And one of the moderators is going to report out on what that group talked about to everybody else. Because I'm sure you probably all want to be in all the rooms. I know I do, but we have to choose just one. So you'll get to hear what the other groups got to talk about. Sounds good? All right. So first up, our first breakout room is going to be disability representation in the media. So we've got Erica, Noah, and Anna. So Erica, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I am a disability studies graduate student, and I'm very interested in screenwriting and disability in the media.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. All right, Noah.
My name is Noah Russell. I am 23 years old, and I am the vice chair of the Youth Steering Committee and a supporter of the United Way Foundation.
Great. All right, and then Anna, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Anna. I'm from West Virginia. I am 27 years old, and I am in the media room.
Everybody go find them in the media room if that is your interest. Awesome. All right. Next up, we have disability history. So we have Sapphire, Andy, and Nicholas. So Sapphire, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sapphire. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a sociology graduate student, and I'll be in the disability history breakout room.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Andy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Andy. I use she, her pronouns. I am from West Jordan, Utah. And the breakout room I'm in, like Sarah said, I'm helping with disability history.
Yay. Excited for you, Andy. All right. And last up, we've got Nicholas.
I'm trying to get myself I'm anxious. Okay. Hi, I'm Nicholas, and I'm 24 years old, and I'm in the youth, or whatever they had, young adult advocacy leadership. So I'm in that program.
Great. Thanks, Nicholas. All right. Next group is education. We've got Jasmine, Hannah, and Kiara. So Jasmine.
Hi, everyone. I'm from Southern California. I'm 22 years old, and my background is in digital accessibility, but I'm particularly passionate about learning about education topics. So I'm really excited to talk about that with y'all tonight.
Nice. Welcome. All right, Hannah.
I'm not seeing Hannah here yet. I'm going to follow up with her, but Kiara is here.
Great. All right, Kiara, if you want to introduce yourself.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Kiara Liz Santiago Vargas. Tengo 20 años. Soy de Maricao, Puerto Rico. Y estoy muy emocionada sobre hablar del tema de educación en la noche de hoy.
Perfect.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kiara Santiago Vargas. I am 29 years old. I am from Puerto Rico, and I'm very excited to talk about tonight's topic.
Puerto Rico. I love it. Great. Okay. And then last but not least, we have the employment room where I'm going to be hanging out. So you all want to talk more about employment, I'm going to be with Tyler and Leslie. So Tyler, go ahead and introduce yourself. Oop, you're on mute.
Hi, my name is Tyler. I'm from North Carolina and I use he, him pronouns. And I'm very excited to talk about employment because I'm wanting to start looking.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. All right, and Leslie, last up.
Hi, my name is Leslie. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas. I will be in the employment room, working in a SIL with half of us employees being disabled, and in the last few months changing careers. It's been kind of life-changing, and having disabilities, it's been a new task and goals to tackle. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about that.
Awesome. All right, and I realized I didn't introduce myself. If you weren't here Monday night, I wasn't here last night. My name is Sarah. I'm our Youth Steering Committee Chair. I use she, her pronouns, and I am from Florida. And I work as our Director of Youth Initiatives at our Florida Independent Living Council. So I have a physical disability, and I've navigated what it's like to be a person with disability and go into full-time employment and some of those barriers. So excited to hear about the conversations that we'll have.
Florida
in that room.
represent.
Florida in the house. All right. So Abby or Sierra, what is the best way for people to choose breakout rooms that they would like to go into?
So I'm going to split us out. We're going to have 3 breakout rooms, and then our main room is going to remain open. So if you are interested in discussing education, you're going to stay right here in this room, and that's where that conversation will happen. But if you're interested in disability representation in the media, disability history, or employment, those will be in breakout rooms. Our panelists tonight are assigned to each of their rooms, but you are welcome as attendees to go in and out of the rooms as you see fit. We're going to have a lot of really great conversations tonight, I hope. I'm sure we got a lot of really intelligent and thoughtful people here. So I'm very excited to hear what you all have to say. As far as accessibility is concerned, there will be ASL in the disability and representation in the media room, and there will also be ASL in the employment room. There will be captioning in both disability history and in education. There will be Spanish interpretation in education as well. So based on your needs, if that is helpful for you to pick a room, that's what's going on. And if you have any questions, you can always message myself or Sierra Royster in the chat, and we can try to help direct you. Are we all ready?
Let's rock and rumble.
All right, I'm going to open up the rooms.
And I think we're going to also put a timer on, right? Just so everybody has an idea of about what, 45 minutes or an hour?
About an hour.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
And just let me know if you need help. Reed, did you have a question?
Yes. So I am late. And also, is he gonna send us to a room at random, and we can leave if we want to go to a different one? How does it work?
So you can pick whichever room you would like to go to. If you go down to the menu bar, there's the breakout room option, and you can select which room you would like to go in. If you would need help with that, y'all can always ask me and I can help with that.
I'm trying to figure out how to get to one of the breakout rooms. So
what button is the breakout room?
Yeah, what button?
If it's not shown up in your menu bar, try more. Do you see it in a more option?
No.
Yes. there should be a more button, and then along there it should say breakout rooms.
I don't see the more button.
Interesting.
Okay, well, Kat, I can put you where you would like to go. And at any point in time, if you want to get out, you can just leave breakout room and tell me where you want to go at that point.
I will also need that help. I'm not seeing the more option.
Me
okay,
too.
Kat, do you
I
want to
need
tell
that
me
help.
which room?
Me three.
Which room you would like to go into, Kat?
The disability media, please.
Oh, it's Jake. Okay.
Going to employment. Reed wants to go to media.
All right. And then Kat, where do you want it to go?
Yeah, I just said I need help.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to get Kat in her room and then I'll come up to you next. Okay, Reed?
Okay.
Hi, thank you. I just got the invite. I'm trying to join the employment room.
Perfect. All right, Reed, where would you like to go?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Trent. What are the choices again?
Disability history, employment, disability representation in the media, and education.
What's disability representation mean? What's that about?
It's like movies and TV shows and how people with disabilities are seen on those different platforms, maybe on social media, and just talking about how people with disabilities are.
Books and stuff. Like I got some signed books by Temple Grandin personally.
Yeah.
And what's education gonna talk about? Is that like high school education, college education, or just in general education, or?
I'm gonna say probably a little bit of all of those, depending on what the group would, if it's high school or college or a little bit of both. I would say all of them.
And what's the other one that besides history of disability? What's the fourth one?
Employment.
I'll start up in education and go from there.
Okay, well, I'm gonna leave you right here then, because this is where you're supposed to be.
Okay.
So, perfect.
How about,
Okay,
how
you
about
good?
me? I need help getting to the breakout room.
Sure. Tylen, which one would you like to go to?
What's the breakout rooms again?
We've got disability representation in the media, disability history, education, and employment.
Disability history.
You got it.
Abby, this
Yes.
is Deanne, and I'd like to go to employment.
You've got it. All right. Is everybody where they'd like to be?
Hey, Abby, this is Kaylin Mentrop. For education, I just need to stay in this room, correct?
Yep. Education, you stay right here.
Okay. Actually, could you transfer me to the disability history, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
You got it.
Hey, Abby, I was just gonna ask if you can let me know when education should start talking.
Sure. I think we're at the point where people are where they need to be. Have I?
Oh, hey, Abby, this is Cody Butler. Could you put me in disability representation and media, please?
You've got it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Hey, Abby, this is Leo. Can I get employment, please?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Was
Jasmine,
was there any update about our third person?
Hannah
If not,
has
it's
not.
okay.
Hannah has not emailed me back yet.
Okay, I can get started. Kara and I have been in communication.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna go head over to disability history. Let me know if you need anything.
Thanks. Have a good day. Have a good rest of your conference. Bye.
Really quick before you start, Jasmine, I just wanted to note to this room, in the chat, you'll see a stream text. If you are somebody that needs CART, that is, you're gonna click that link and that's gonna provide you for the CART for this session.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now that we can get started, I'm one of the co-hosts for this education breakout room. Kiara from Puerto Rico is our second person. But I told Kiara that I could get us started with our first question for you all. And that is that we'd love to hear about what you all would consider education, because when we were brainstorming what we would talk about with y'all, we realized that education means something different to everyone. I would consider this education, especially topics within the disability community that are often left out of official curriculum. For example, at my university, I would have never learned anything about digital accessibility had I stuck to what my professors were teaching me. I had to do a lot of self-taught research, learning, connecting to communities that these topics are relevant in, and that's something that my university just wouldn't have offered. So if you have strong thoughts about this, please feel free to raise your hand and briefly introduce yourself before you talk about what you have to say, so we can all get to know each other a little more. Kiara is also going to step in and speak throughout this because she is our co-host. So feel free to start raising your hand and let me know what you all think. And I'll jot some of this down to carry the conversation forward. Does anyone here not rely on public education, maybe?
Hey, there I am. It's a little confusing. My name is Oliver, but my legal name is Iman Sheikh. And I work for state government. And so the part of education that I am at this very moment most curious about, or what like is on my brain, is like educating. Okay, let me go back. You know how like for Latinx people, there's like Latin name, there's Latinx, and there's like the name that the people decided for themselves versus the name they were kind of told is like inclusive. And so my interest as it connects to peer support is like education for folks with disabilities that like includes their own language to each other. So like I didn't realize I was disabled until I went to treatment for a psychiatric diagnosis, and then like the more involved I got with providers, medical providers, like the more diagnoses I gained and the more knowledge I gained about my diagnoses. But it occurred to me just the other day from this conference that like people who don't know or don't have personal experience are the ones like advising me or helping me. And I'm curious about like realistic education, because I think sometimes in a lot of circles, education can be watered down based on like what those without disabilities assume those with disabilities can understand. And so the intersection of like what is realistic but still like induces hope to like survive and thrive, that like came from us to us as far as like learning about what we are able to do and like what we are able to do with different accommodations. Because I feel like a lot of, especially like what's considered youth, is like, I feel like a lot of the messages are from folks without disabilities that are like, if we like, we're kind of categorized as like this community that like really needs to only hear hopeful messages.
Right.
And I kind of have a hard time with that, where like everything's kind of watered down to be like, if you do this, everything will be good. And kind of where the line of that is with like, realistically, we're all human and we're all going to face challenges, and how to like maintain the hope while like being realistic about education that like can be understood and like is necessary and realistic, which like is going to depend on the level of like what is needed by each person, right?
Yes.
And how to like make a universal curriculum when we all have different needs, that is like a truth,
right?
Not just like if you like
a tangible definition that can change.
Yeah, or like I feel like as a person who didn't know of disabilities, like when I was going through most of college, all of high school, I think there's like a universal message that is not, that's like a one size fits all about like how you should go to college and how everything at college is just going to be like peachy, and then you're going to leave and have like this education to change the world. And I think we need a more nuanced definition of like what people's needs are, what their interests are, who is advising them on pursuing their interests. Is it someone disabled? Is it someone who is just saying like, this is what we have to tell people, so this is, we're going to create this like unrealistic image of like how simple everything is, and how that pertains to education. Because I did not take a track, like I did not know anything about disabilities or what options were available to me for accommodations to help me be successful. You know, because it wasn't that I couldn't conquer the work that was ahead of me. It was that when I was taking a test, this is like the most minor example, I was so worried about taking it at the same pace as everyone else that I couldn't concentrate on the test.
Mhm.
And I was so worried about like being enough and being able to prove with like a high score that like this meant something about me, when I wasn't actually learning anything. I was just memorizing, which goes into like a deeper conversation we don't need to have about like the school system and how memorization is how you excel, and kind of like what is important to learn about survival and thriving, and like what pieces of knowledge, because I bet our education system is based on like, if we teach them a little bit about everything, they'll be able to like see what they're interested in and pursue that. And I wish there were like more reasonable ways that like I could have been told that I could excel.
Yeah.
But also like who has done it that I can speak to about like their challenges, those challenges that I foresee. I feel like we don't talk about like challenges enough. We're like, it's hard, let's do this one size fits all model, you don't fit, but like it'll all be fine, instead of it being like we need to have a conversation about what is offered, how it is offered, how it meets each person's needs based on their disability and their humanness.
Yeah.
And how to like also add a bit of rational realisticness that like I feel like is often watered down. That's what I got.
Yes, I agree. Higher institutions or any institutions in the education system already lack this huge understanding or this huge foundation of what it means to be a person with a disability, that if they don't even have that fair understanding down, how are they expected to properly educate, you know, their communities about it, about those topics that you mentioned? How do we start to teach if we're not even like communicating in the right way, if we don't even have the language down?
Yeah, I was in a conference a couple months ago, and something that was like really on my heart was there being, I mean, we're talking about the needs of folks with disabilities, right? That comes first. And I think a part of that is education for those without disabilities, and there being a need for like a curriculum in public schools that educates non-disabled folks on disability history, right? Like, why should only the disabled know disability history? Well,
Exactly, right.
and like I work for voc rehab at the state level, so like we work with a lot of IL and SIL, and we work with service animals and their voluntary registration in our state. And you'd be amazed how many public entities, because the ADA says, you know, public entities have to permit service animals, like that's it. And you'd be amazed by how many public entities like have never heard of the ADA, don't want to learn about the ADA. And it's kind of like, what education needs to be required for a public entity to like go into business, where they are aware of like accessibility needs in order to accommodate humans who want to enter, and even service animals. And just, I mean, I think the focus should be on like educating ourselves from ourselves, but there's also this element of like the world.
Like, how do we streamline that education on a global scale? How do we
Well,
get
even like American folks without disabilities have an understanding of what they learn, right? You like, you know what you learn, and if you're learning from your parents who were around when the time during the time that we were in like circuses. And, if that's what they're learning about folks with disabilities, they need like a more modern education.
Yeah.
And so if it's required of all public schools to like have a course, and I think it could be a full course that's focused like on civics, on disability history, and current disability like needs, I think it would open a lot of people's mind towards aiding us. Not that we need them, because we're powerful, right? We can make change happen. But it's really hard to make change happen in a world where we're misunderstood and thought of as like not being as capable, when really the world and the system is not built for our needs. So how can we thrive?
Exactly. Like, what's the bare standard that we need to meet before we can start thinking about like opportunities for thriving, rather than just like having to educate the people around us? How do we tackle that if ignorance is at the bottom of it all? I'll call on Reed next, because I believe your hand was put up first, but thank you. We'll come back to you, Iman. Thank you. Hi, Reed.
Hey. So yeah. Sorry, Trex. Yeah, I agree what
Iman.
yeah, Iman was saying. Because like, although I have a slightly different, like, growing up when I was younger, I thought I was told that they thought I had a developmental delay or something. Then like after second grade, I was doing so well that they're gonna mainstream me. Yeah! Sorry, Trets. And third grade, which they did, but somewhere between second and third grade, I got diagnosed with Tourette's and autism, high functioning autism, or that's what you want to call it. And and then and ADHD and all that fun stuff, I guess. And like this elementary school, I was in a time that they like, but I think by then in third grade, like from fourth grade to the rest of school, they wanted me to have like an aide and stuff, or like someone to help me out. But I think sometimes it would be kind of I guess it was needed, but like it's kind of embarrassing having like someone follow you around and no one else has that. It makes you even stand out even more when you already stand out, you know? And although in high school and also a little bit after high school and stuff, I did like different disability conferences like the ARC, I'm Determined, I'm from Virginia. Although I did Wildlife or Wildlife, whatever they call it, Youth Leadership Forum or Academy, but at the time I was living in Ohio and I did up there, but then I moved back to Virginia and stuff. But yeah, so there are opportunities out there, but like I think kind of like if I'm interpreting correctly, I am Eon saying we shouldn't have to like all strive to be an underdog story. We should, but the stuff should be more in place so we don't. So it's more it's not accessible, easy or easable to accomplish our goals and education and to be included in sports. Because like growing up, like first, I was told until towards the end of high school, or that not told, but it was an unofficial rule. I assumed that because of my disability, I couldn't do regular sports. The only sports I could do was Special Olympics. So, and then when I was in the middle of being in Ohio, I joined like the cross country team. Then like when I came back to Virginia, I was part of one back in my school in Virginia. So until like personal stuff happened for the rest of that senior year, and then because of that, I had to have had to have the second senior to finish up, and which brings me to another thing, like having like alternative placement for people with special needs, because people's or the county's public school can't handle them, or think it's a better fit. It's not fair because they had to like. I'm just going by my experience, but like my experience wasn't the best at the alternative school, and luckily I was only there for 1 year to finish up. But it's just like that that they should be better tailored to my needs and not have to depend on like an outside source or
Right.
school stuff, or like you can't go to your public school anymore. You choose from school A, B, or C,
Mhm.
and that's not fair.
And you
And
think
like
we should,
when like growing up at the public school for the most part, I said, like for the 2 years that I was in touch with people from Virginia when I lived in, but even before the years I was in Virginia before I moved out of state, and most or good majority of them were there when I came back. Like I built relationships and friends and stuff, and I didn't get to go back to some of them that were still there. To make things worse, I didn't get to graduate with the class I grew up with. I was held back a year towards the end of high school, and it was so upsetting, like hearing everyone else graduate, that made me not feel like part of that cohesive group that I took like over a decade of my time growing up in K-12 schools to try to be with, and then in the end I don't even get to graduate. And I didn't get to even watch it. I was like,
Mhm.
let's just say I was sick in the hospital. I don't want to talk about that part that much, but
Sure.
it's just not fair. And then like how the alternative school treated me is like, I felt like they treated people there better that would either A, were there because they weren't placed by the local county public school, like they had families with lots of money and they paid for them there, or B, they were placed by a public school, but they've been there for so many years they built up a good
Yeah.
reputation, and they earn being treated better. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm just
Right.
there to finish up for 1 year, and they're just told the stuff that my local county school told them about me, and they don't get a chance for me to explain my side of the story. And that just some of that may or may not be true, but there's two sides to every story. I
Right.
think they just see what my county school at the time wrote on paper, documentation, and stuff. And then I didn't get to really choose out my classes. They like the classes they feel like I need to finish up, and like here are your classes. And like the government class I was in didn't feel like a high school government class from what I was told from not told, but hear what regular public school sorry, regular public school government classes like. It felt like a mixture between elementary and middle school civics.
Mhm.
And they made us watch like Liberty Kids and Disney's Pocahontas, the animated version, the first one, and just like do reports on famous people like Alexander Hamilton, Betsy Ross. And they assigned me Alexander Hamilton, doing research on them. I think they wanted me to do that because they felt like they didn't say this, but I just kind of assume, I'm not for sure, but I found out that Alexander Hamilton was like a traitor in the revolution. I
Hey,
felt like
Reed, that's I was just
that
gonna.
I think I'm a traitor. So you know what I'm saying? Sorry, I'm talking
Oh
too
no,
much.
that's okay. I I think you're making some really valuable points, and I want to make sure that we give, I think Kiara had her hand up, excuse me, and then Amon has their hand up as well. I don't know if they want to comment on what you're saying. I just don't want them to lose their thought. Thank you
Okay.
for sharing so much.
Yeah,
I think it's really valuable. Kiara, do you want to go ahead? I know we haven't heard from you. I don't know if you're commenting on something Reed said, so I wanted to make sure you can get in there if you had a thought in that moment.
Bueno, voy a hablar despacio para que la intérprete pueda traducir poco a poco las palabras que voy a decir.
Okay. Well, I'm going to speak slowly so the interpreter is able to interpret what I'm about to say.
Yo vengo de un pueblo en donde no pasamos de 5,000 habitantes.
I come from a town where there's not more than 5,000 residents.
Eso hace que la educación que yo recibí pública pues haya sido, vamos a decir, muy tranquila.
So, so that makes the education that I have received to have been pretty calm.
Pero aún así, pues en la época en donde yo estudié mi grado elemental, pues había muchas dudas sobre pues, la persona con impedimento, porque normalmente pues casi no había, vamos a decirlo así.
But even though, when I went to school, there were kind of little information about people with disabilities, because let's just say there were just not too many at that time.
Y entonces eso hace que cuando llegue una persona con cualquier impedimento, pues se quedan extrañados porque no es lo costumbre, no se acostumbran a ver personas que tengan algún impedimento si vienen de un pueblo muy pequeño.
So when you come from a small town, or when they get someone that has an impediment or a disability, that is kind of strange to them, because that is not something that they're used to, especially coming from a small town.
Pero cuando yo llegué a la escuela, ¿verdad? Yo tengo autismo. Yo me acuerdo que muchas personas se me quedaban mirando raro y eso, pero poco a poco, a pesar de todo, me fueron aceptando tal y como soy.
But when I came to school, and I do have autism, but, I just little by little, they were able to accept me just as I am.
Y realmente después de mí llegaron otros estudiantes, ¿verdad? Menores que yo, llegaron y llegaron con otros impedimentos, y eso hizo que, pues, en las escuelas de mi pueblo y cerca de mi pueblo, pues, comenzaran a incorporar talleres de personas con impedimento y empezaron a hacer
after me, other people with disability, or students with disabilities followed. So then that kind of made the school, the town, see that, that there were others. So then they started offering workshops, for students or for people with disabilities.
Y pues realmente yo, pues, realmente tuve que aprender a incorporarme a ellos, a su manera de ver el mundo, para poder, como decir, sobrevivir a la escuela pública.
So, I had to incorporate, I had to kind of blend into the world so I would be able to kind of fit in with them.
Pero en mi caso en particular, cuando yo llegué a 5º grado, yo dejé de recibir terapia del habla y me había quedado sin nada, y yo me acuerdo que me empezó a dar ansiedad.
When I was in 5th grade, I stopped receiving speech therapy, and I ended up with not having anything. So then I remember that I started having anxiety.
Pero cuando yo pues recibí una solicitud de unirme a otra escuela especializada de Bellas Artes, pues decidí audicionar y por mi suerte me aceptaron.
But, then I received an application where I was able to put in an application for Bellas Artes and do an audition, and fortunately I was accepted.
Y entonces desde pues, desde middle school, desde mi pues, grado intermedio, yo empecé a ir a 2 escuelas. Por la mañana iba a mi escuela normal y por la tarde iba a mi escuela de música.
So, so if from middle school or intermediate school, then I started attending to schools. In the morning, I would attend my regular normal school. And then in the afternoon, I was attending school for music.
Eso hizo que conociera muchas personas, aprendiera pues a tener un pasatiempo y me hizo superarme como persona en muchos aspectos.
So that allowed me to get to know people, to start to have hobbies and to be able to succeed in a shape, just in different areas and in different aspects.
Y yo siento que si realmente nosotros queremos en un futuro que las personas con impedimento podamos salir hacia adelante y podamos tener pues la manera de poder socializar, de poder hacer las cosas que nos gustan, yo creo que deberían de incorporar este tipo de programas, ya sea de educación física o de bellas artes, porque esto nos ayuda a nosotros a poder abrirnos nuevas puertas hacia el mundo.
So I feel like, if we're going to be working and, getting to see more people kind of being able to succeed, then we need to have more programs like this that, that offer like, physical education or like Bellas Artes or like that. We're able to be a part of that. And then we'll be able to open, other doors for us to be able to succeed and be able to do better.
Así que eso era lo que realmente yo quería comentar, porque pues yo soy de Puerto Rico y pues yo sé que hay muchas diferencias entre pues Puerto Rico y Estados Unidos en cuestión de educación, pero yo quería pues presentar mi historia para que vean que a pesar de todo pude salir hacia adelante en un pueblo chiquitito y en mi país.
So that's all I really just wanted to say. I know that there's a lot of difference when it comes to education, between Puerto Rico and the United States, but I just wanted to tell my story. So just so you can see that even coming from a little town, we're all, we are able to succeed.
Gracias, que tengan buenas noches.
Thank you, and you have a good evening.
Thank you for sharing, Kiara. That was a really interesting version of a story where resources were properly allocated to fund an entire system that she gets to participate in after school. I'd love to hear if any of you in your rural communities or not rural communities have those same versions of stories, or if you feel like working on a country level is a bit different than working perhaps at the level that she and her community is working with. Iman, I see your hand again.
Hi, sorry, my computer is having issues. Something that I'm interested in learning more about is like I said, with the one size fits all is, I know I experienced an urge to like be normal. And I think the goal of education as a one size fits all is like, oh, we'll make the disabled normal so they can function in like normal society. And I think that's like a valid human experience, right? Is to like want to fit in. But I think there needs to be ways to like integrate into society with education that's not like set up for us to fail and for us to like always be different, right? Like I don't want the standard to be like, and then I thrive because I was normal, or like, and then I thrive because I succeeded in the system that exists, instead of like, I don't know, like if I had had proper guidance, I wouldn't have gone to college. I would have picked up a trade or like gone to a trade school. And I think I'm all for like having relationships and being seen as like a complete human and being treated like a complete human. And I think a lot of the time, the parts that like make me, but like what does different even mean? But the parts that like make me different can be considered a burden because like I require more support than normal people. But I don't think that language is accurate, right? That like,
right.
That the difference between normal and me is what like is too much.
Right. Like
right. And so I feel like I feel like there needs to be a change in like mindsets that trickles down to education. I think education's like the way to implement how like everyone. I don't think the system where like we're in classes with like non-disabled folks, but the education is geared towards them and we're like supposed to somehow fit just like them in these courses built for them. I don't think that's like the right or even ethical way to like go through the education system, right? I want to like be a part of my community, but I want us all to learn similar topics and like have a similar experience. I just don't think that the way that the education system set up is for everyone.
Right. And I think that definitely starts with, first of all, having people with disabilities in the positions to make those decisions. Because it feels like the more they come out with these sort of like resources for help, I feel like they can be distinguished early on whether or not they were from a community or a group of people that prioritized visibility. Did they make an effort to include people with disabilities and their voices when creating courses or when creating programs or offices that provide these services? I agree wholeheartedly, but I'd also like to hear it from Hannah and Jordan. Hannah, I believe you had your hand first.
Yeah, I've only been in rural school districts, and something that I've noticed is there's like two sides of the coin. You're either general ed or special ed, but I always kind of fell in the middle, and they weren't trained or really knew how to help me. So they were really at a loss on how to give me that work I needed to be successful in an environment that I could be successful in, because they would either put me in one or the other, and it was very hard for me to do anything. Either I wasn't challenged at all, or I was so stressed out I couldn't do any of the work. And the training they have access to, or the school's willing to send them to, it's very limited. And they had to do this. My special ed teacher at the time had to go through training herself, trying to figure out how can she help me. And it was a very long road, and it was a lot of fighting, especially when I was getting closer to my senior year, trying to get help with transition services. And I never got it, unfortunately. My mom had to do all the work trying to make it so I can go to college when I graduate. And I was able to with a lot of work and the support of college. But in rural school districts, the access to services is very limited. And we don't have a lot of infrastructure either to help or funding.
Right. I now do not live in a rural community, but it sounds like bigger cities are having the same challenges that rural communities might be having, but one of them definitely has resources that the other doesn't. So it feels like with rural communities, especially from what I've heard throughout my experience as a youth leader in these topics, is that they're just not, they're really like self-driven. If there's people in the rural community that have the ability to make change, that's almost always how the change happens, because reaching out for help outside of the rural community, from what I've heard, has not been successful in education, especially because education standards are set at the national level or the state level, which might be really far away from where the rural communities themselves are. But I do understand that your mom had to take on the roles that perhaps populous cities already have people in positions for, or resources already ready to share with people in your position as well. Jordan, I believe you were next.
Oops, sorry. I just wanted to, so I have like a kind of my soapbox thing is that we need disability history curriculum in all education. Like Jennifer Keelan has a children's book. You can start that real young. But as I was listening to what everyone's saying about kind of their school experiences, I think more than just it would be cool for people to know about like this huge legacy of protest. It's also giving people like the tools to identify themselves as a student who may need accommodations, who may need more support, because I was
Mhm.
kind of in that like 504 accommodations, but not IEP like level of support. And I didn't identify with my disability until like high school. So just going through elementary and middle without any accommodations at all. Um, but also, I think having like seeing Judy Human on the screen would have made me feel really normal because,
Yes,
you know,
exactly. Yeah, education comes in all different forms, including seeing yourself in a children's book or a book at all, seeing yourself and seeing that someone took ownership of the position they were in, and that they can also end up in those positions like the authors that you mentioned. Hi, Reed.
Yes, yes.
Oh, your hand's up. I was wondering if you had another comment or if that was from the last time.
Yeah, I have another comment. Like I mentioned in the comment section, that there is no normal. There's just our challenges and how we deal with them, and personally, and like I think normal's like something our society labels, or isn't labels, like a standard we have to meet, where we can push beyond that, where like that doesn't matter, because we were all not like, we might have our disabilities for a reason, to make a difference for other people with disabilities, and not just ourselves.
Mhm.
And educate with our education, other people's, and other things with disabilities and topics, and it's how we use and handle those situations and deal with them, for ourselves and for others, to make a difference entirely.
I agree. Hi, Iman.
Hey, so something Jordan said really stuck with me, and I'm thinking about informed consent and like what that's based on, right? Like what we're told and then what we make decisions based on. And I think a lot of it does depend on like at what point is someone able to like choose for themselves. Because I feel like in high school, parents or guardians or independent living counselors or school systems like decide the best way for us to be successful in their eyes and their one size fits all eyes. And I think is the age like 18 when you get to like, if you go to college, is it like, you know, this is how I want it to go,
Mhm.
and like what is available to me. Well, it kind of goes to the beginning, right, of what I was saying about like everything's watered down. So if you're giving someone like a watered down vision of like their success, and then that is the informed part of like their consent, you know, like what message are we being given, who is it given by, and like what we're being told. I know I've Googled like so many times, like accommodations for XYZ. Like
Mhm.
recently I developed carpal tunnel and I was like, I have no idea what the accommodations are for that. And I feel like doctors are so blurry with like what is covered and not covered by insurances. So like if I go to a PCP and I have a specific issue, it's not covered. But if I'm
Yeah.
talking generally, then like it is covered. And so like who are you even supposed to talk to about like different things that come up? And so I feel like it's just not clearly built with us in mind. And so it's hard to be like, if a high school counselor is saying like your best shot at success is to go to college and I don't know, attempt it on your own and see what assistance you need. Like, I just wish there was a resource for like
Yeah.
a realistic presentation of what I'm consenting to. Or like, I want to choose classes that like pique my interest. And like what accommodations are available for me. Like, do I get alternate assignments where I'm still learning the same information, but like I can do it in a format that like I'm able to thrive in, instead of like, I don't know, I feel like informed consent's kind of funny because they'll be like half telling the truth and then you consent thinking that you're informed and there's no one to like advise you on your full capabilities.
Yeah. Do you think, and this question goes out for everyone, but Iman, since you're here now, do you think that education is the first step in combating everything that we've discussed tonight? Or do you think that there's maybe somewhere else, like one of our other topics that are being discussed right now are disability employment? Would any of you argue that's maybe the first step that should be taken, that prioritizing that people with disabilities get positions in authority that can influence these systems beneath them? Or do you think that the first step is education from like the primary level? Like we mentioned, there's a children's book out there that illustrates what people like the author look like. Examples like that. Do you think that education is the catch-all of this, or would any of you suggest any other routes?
I think we need advocacy at all ages. So like, I don't think it's so much like, does our generation like, you know, take the seats of authority and like create opportunities for young children to like see themselves? Or is it like, you know, I think a big part, I think it all needs to happen at the same time at different levels, right? So like folks with disabilities who are already in authority need to make a push to hire more folks with disabilities. I know that when I joined VR as a client, they were like, I had gone to college, I had struggled with unemployment for 2 years. And they were like, your best shot is a job at Chipotle. And I remember them being like really mean about it. But this was like the job coaches that they had hired. And they were like, do you want a job or not? Like, you need to work at Chipotle. And I was like, I can't stand for like 10 hours a day. This is not a for me, but I think their goal was to just like get this case closed. And I ended up getting an admin job with state government and really succeeding there for the first time in my life, because it is a good fit. And so I think we need it all. I think we need it all at the same time. But I think, you know, from different ages, sorry, but I think it starts with, I think the ideal solution is education in public education settings, like courses, you know, which you need legislature, you need advocacy, you need folks in authority to push that through. And only then will like there be representation, will there be empowerment, you know, for the younger generation to like further the movement.
Exactly.
But I definitely think like it starts with like us making demands for those representing us to be of us. And I think, yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome.
Sasha, I see you put your camera on. Do you have something you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and then I saw Amanda dropped into the chat. I would say education or normalization and culture. That's what they had mentioned to your question, Jasmine.
Okay, thanks. Amanda, if you would like to expand on that, feel free, because I'd love to hear what you think about normalization means. Because like I mentioned, education means something different to everyone. When I think of education, I'm not primarily thinking about school either. For example, I would consider this education but it's really difficult to communicate that when you're in spaces that can actually create change and create authority. Like, how would I communicate that there are possibilities outside of school to teach society, for example? That already is really open-ended, and it's really hard to get people on board with that. Does anyone else have an answer about whether or not education is the answer? It's the catch-all, or would you agree that there's other infrastructure routes that we can take in society to get change going, like employment or normalization, like Amanda mentioned?
I really like Jordan's comment too in the chat. Kind of the chicken and the egg situation to me. I would love to see more disabled guidance counselors, school teachers, administration that are working with students with and without disabilities. I think that's one start.
I think a direct result of more counselors and, support is empowerment. I think it's hard to empower and create hope and faith in oneself if you're not seeing representation, right? I feel like a lot of us are really isolated, and this is like an attempt to form a community, but I think those who are not disabled are kind of like, they exist, where are they? Like, what do they look like? And there's no one size fits all answer. And so I think it's hard when, especially with invisible disabilities, to be like masking as anyone else and not being like, I don't know, I feel like there's so much harm that we need platforms and we need community and we need guidance counselors and stuff to empower us to advocate and to like instill the faith in us that we can advocate. Because I think there's too many instances of like not thriving. And I think if we had more support, because like whether we like it or not, we're stuck in this system and we can try our best. For years we've been trying to shift the system to better accommodate us when like we are a part of the numbers, right? We are citizens, whatever we are, human beings. And how do we like advocate for our value, one of us and all of us, when we're just not really seen?
Right. Thank you for sharing. Hi, Hannah.
Hi. I think kind of the biggest struggle when it comes to creating that change is each like school district needs their own type of change. It's different depending on where you are. So a lot of the time when the change happens, it's much more like a widespread kind of change instead of change in the school district itself, which kind of causes problems because either it's something they did need, but it isn't like all they needed, or maybe it's something they already had in place, but they need something else. So it's the biggest trick is getting all the voices at the table to get that change they need and possibly give ideas to other school districts that are struggling and say, yes, that would work. And then they could create the change in their communities that someone else did.
Sorry about that, got unmuted, but absolutely, I wanted to, in response to your comment, I've worked in federal workspaces as much as I've worked in nonprofit organization spaces in much smaller cities, and I would agree that federal workspaces would also advocate for empowerment at the local level before changes can happen at the national level. I think everyone would agree that education is sort of the key to all of this, because we don't know what we don't know. And it sounds funny, but it's true. Had I not ever known that my classmates were struggling with access to their resources when the whole world went virtual after the pandemic, I would have never learned that digital accessibility was a whole field that the industry is battling, that our society as a country is battling at this very moment, because education isn't there. There's no one at the authority level saying, hey, we could use some help here. So that has been my experience as someone who used to rely on the public education system, to who now I can oversee it or look at it from afar and see this is where the mistakes are happening, or this is what can be improved. I'm seeing messages that we're almost out of time. I wanted to thank everyone for listening and for participating. If there's any closing comments that anyone would like to say to each other or to me about feedback I can share with the rest of April, please let me know. But thank you, all of you, for participating. I learned a lot from each of you, and I hope you all learned from each other. Hi, Reed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, Trent. Yeah, I didn't know till like early this year there was like a group I could join, like virtually for my community for people with Tourette's. So,
Of course, I can follow up with you in an email
I
about
just
some
found out
resources.
that earlier this year, and also I found out there's like a camp in Georgia called Camp Twitch and Shout for people with Tourette's syndrome, and also they do a Tourette's conference somewhere every year in the US in May, and by the time I joined they just did it, so like, I'll try to go to it in 2023. But yeah, so and
that's awesome.
and
It's
we were
never
talking
too
about
soon.
there being no normal. That reminds me of this is related to the topic. I'm not trying to get on a tangent or anything. For like the series that was on Disney Plus, or was still on the Ms. Marvel, episode 6 of that's called No Normal. And like at the end of it, you find out Kamala Khan, she's technically the first. They haven't introduced X-Men, but this is a spoiler, she's the first technically mutant in the MCU, because her friend Bruno says based on her DNA she's a mutant. So like, and like, if you know the history behind the comics and the X-Men, that it's like disability superheroes, and like they might be inspired by the ADA, I'm not sure, but it's just like something to think about, like to stop thinking of this normality, and like there is no normality, and just like the limits that everyone puts on us, or we put it on ourselves because they put it on us, and just go beyond that and make a difference.
Thank you, Reed, for sharing. I agree. That's definitely something I've had to repeat to myself as someone who works in digital accessibility. When people complain to me about like, oh, well, I just don't know how to help the disabled population of my customers or whatever, I always have to repeat that there's no normal, there's no reason why you need to limit your resources or what you offer to a certain demographic of society. I think we're going to be called back in any minute now, but thank you all for participating and for listening to me and Kiara and Hannah. Hannah and Kiara, if you wanted to say anything, feel free.
Voy a decir una última palabra pues, antes de terminar.
I am going to say a last few words before we finish.
Me gustó escuchar pues, la historia de cada uno, y de esto se trata, de poder compartir nuestra experiencia y así poder entender cómo es el sistema educativo en cada estado de Estados Unidos y también incluyendo Puerto Rico.
And I like to say that I have like to have heard everybody's story, and that's what this is all about, to see about how education is in every state, including Puerto Rico.
Tenemos que nosotros como personas que somos líderes seguir luchando por los derechos de las futuras generaciones que van a nacer con impedimentos para que reciban una mejor educación.
It is up to us that we are like the leaders to continue to work on this so that we can better the education.
Así que eso vendrá siendo todo.
That is all I want to say.
Welcome back, everybody. I believe the rest of our rooms are closing. And we have about 20 seconds before everybody makes it back. And I will ask one person from each room to report out on what they talked about during the session.
You honestly, you scared us a bit, Abby, with all of the messages you were sending.
Listen, I just wanted everybody to know their timing. I didn't want people to get caught off guard.
We were having some really good conversations, which you heard a bit in
Yes.
our room.
Well, would someone from disability representation in the media like to report out?
I'll give it to Anna to report out.
Oh, okay. We just talked about the different like pros and cons of a disability represented in the media, and just how pretty much it is a double-edged sword in a sense that they could portray it properly, but there still could be negatives shown in that. But yeah, it was a very good conversation and very chilled, and we just talked about disability in the media.
Excellent. Okay, how about disability history? Would somebody like to report out?
Andy, you want to go or you want me to go?
I can go. So we were talking about how disability history, where it started and how we are here now. And we want other people, our generation, to know how we got here from our disability, if I'm trying to make that sound right. Also, we talked about my trouble with my school district with my accommodations. So, yeah.
And we also
But
started a
everything.
book club. We sure did
Hold on,
start a
hold
book
on.
club.
Sorry. And yeah, that was the highlight of like our chat. We started a book club. So if anybody want to join, just
Send me an email. I'll drop it in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to education. I would love for one of the so Jasmine or Hannah or
if Kiara or Hannah would like to. I think Jasmine had to step away.
No, I see Jasmine.
Yeah, I can take it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, I did want to step away because I have to take a break after leading for an hour, but it's okay. We talked a lot about where education starts and what steps need to be taken about addressing disability issues in spaces that educate communities and educate others. We talked a lot about how education is not limited to schools or public resources either. It can definitely take the form of something like this, for example. Kiara gave an example about her education and her life and how education in her life allowed her to thrive in Puerto Rico.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And then lastly, Leslie or Tyler, could you tell us about your employment conversation? Tyler, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
We had a lot of good conversation about employment. We talked about the barriers, with employers, with physical accommodations such as personal care assistants, or we talked about, vocational rehab, reaching out to them for employment. We also talked about, just the different barriers we've had facing employment.
We also talked about adding some of our hidden talents to our resume, like talking two languages at home or problem solving. We're all disabled. We all have a disability. So every day we're solving a new problem or going after a new task. How to talk to your employer about accommodations, what you want to do, what you're comfortable with at a job, what you wouldn't want to do, where you wouldn't want to work.
And we also talked about, the stigma with employers seeing, for if we have a physical disability or not, even with not a physical disability, but, the stigma with employers seeing that we have a disability and thinking we can't do anything. That's not the case.
It sounds like all four of these conversations were just excellent. And I'd love to give a big round of applause to the April Lead On Collaborative. They've worked really hard over the last 7 weeks to get ready for this. And I am just so impressed with the way that they were able to lead all four of these groups. And I want to thank everybody else for their participation and being so willing and open to talk amongst people you maybe don't know very well about what can be really difficult topics. Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just from the group that I was in, I was super impressed. Leslie and Tyler, you both were really good at moderating. I wish I could have hopped in the other groups, but just great job. Great job among Lead On Collaborative.
I'd also
And I think, whoops, sorry, go ahead, Noah.
I like to also say that everyone that I was also part of Lead On Collaborative representing Florida, but I'm super proud of the entirety of the Lead On Collaborative as well, along with members of the YSC board or Youth Steering Committee board who also helped maintain our panels tonight.
Awesome. All right, Abby, do we have any housekeeping before I can announce what tomorrow night is? But do you have any other announcements for anybody?
I don't think so. I'm all good here. Thank you. Actually, can we get a round of applause for our whole interpreters, our captioners, just the whole team at Sign Glasses, everybody who was here to help us tonight. This one was a big logistical puzzle, and we are so happy you were all here to help us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Somehow it went off without a hitch.
Yes. So much goes on behind the scenes. So thank you to our interpreters, captioners, translators, and April staff as well for making this happen. So we will let y'all go for tonight. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern, we have our IL on Mars dance. So get ready to come hang out, listen to some music, might sing some karaoke while we're on mute. It'll be a good time. We're gonna have a little dance party. So come hang out with us tomorrow night. It'll be a more chill night, but we look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow.
Abby, I was gonna say real quick before we got off, if you don't mind, if anybody wants to join the book club, I did post my email in the chat, but if there's a way to put it somewhere in the little notes that we were gonna get it started, if there's a way to do that, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Because I don't want to forget anybody.
If you all haven't joined our Discord,
Oh, I
the
did not even think about
Discord
that.
is a great place for us to communicate about that. The link to join the Discord is on the April conference website.
Okay.
Hey, Abby,
Awesome.
can you make a,
Got it, Reed.
a section of a Discord for the book club? That'd be great.
Yes. Making a
I
note
have-
right now.
I have some ideas for books we can read for the book club. Like a few of them I personally have signed. They're all by the same author, Temple Grandin. She came to Richmond, Virginia in like 2019 before COVID, and I got a few books signed from her. So although I might need to get like a digital copy of those books, because the actual copy I don't want to open because they have her signature in, but
Very fair. Very fair. All right, I'm gonna turn it to Sarah to close us out.
All right, we will see you all tomorrow night for our dance party. Let us know if you need anything in between. We are on Discord. Feel free to shoot us messages. But thank you all for your participation and your hard work in organizing tonight. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
link.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. What's the Discord link?
Bye.